Every mother knows the sound of her child's footsteps. It is one of those things nobody tells you about parenthood that you will memorize without trying: the specific rhythm of the person you raised, the weight of their step, the cadence of their walk, the way they move through a house as distinctly as a fingerprint, as individual as a voice. You learn it the way you learn a song you never intended to memorize, through repetition, through proximity, through 18 years of listening. I knew my son Ethan's footsteps the way I knew my own heartbeat. Which is how I knew on a Tuesday night in October that the footsteps I heard at 2 in the morning were not the footsteps of a boy going to the bathroom. They were the footsteps of someone trying very hard not to be heard. My name is Diane Holloway, 44 years old. High school English teacher, longtime single mother, maker of mediocre pasta and excellent pie, and for reasons I was only beginning to understand, the woman who had apparently been sleeping through something important in her own house for longer than she realized. My husband Greg left when Ethan was 7. Not dramatically, there was no affair, no explosion, no single catastrophic event. Just a slow erosion, the kind that happens when two people discover too late that they have been building toward different destinations. We parted without hatred, which I have always considered a kind of grace, and we co-parented Ethan with the functional civility of two adults who had decided that their son mattered more than their grievances. Ethan grew up between two houses and somehow managed to be whole in both of them, which I considered, and still consider, one of the most impressive things I have ever witnessed. He was a quiet kid, not withdrawn, just interior, thoughtful, the kind of child who watched more than he spoke and understood more than he revealed. He read constantly. He had a small, loyal group of friends and a deep distrust of large social gatherings. He was funny in a dry, unexpected way that ambushed you when you weren't paying attention. He was, to put it plainly, the best person I knew. And he was sneaking out of my house at 2 in the morning. The first time I noticed it, I told myself I was wrong. He's 18, I reminded myself. A senior in high school, 2 months from graduation, legally an adult in every sense that the law recognizes. If he wanted to go somewhere in the night, that was his right. I was not the kind of mother who policed her adult child's movements. I was the kind of mother who had tried for 18 years to give him room, real room, not the performed room of parents who say they're giving space while quietly tightening every other constraint. But the footsteps happened again on Thursday, and again on Saturday, and by the following week the pattern was clear enough that I could not honestly keep calling it coincidence. He left around 1:30 or 2. He returned between 4 and 5. He was always in his bed when I checked in the mornings. I had not, I want to be clear, started setting alarms to verify this, but I had, without deciding to, started waking up around 5 and listening for the sounds of his return. A door eased open. Footsteps on the stairs, the third one carefully avoided because it creaked. The gentle close of his bedroom door.
I understand.
I lay in the dark and listened and told myself I was not worried. I was worried. What worried me was not what he was doing. I want to say that clearly because the nature of a parent's worry matters. I was not worried about danger, specifically not in the abstract sense of danger that parents deploy as cover for control. Ethan was sensible. He was careful. He had never given me a reason to doubt his judgment.
We can't keep avoiding
What worried me was the hiding.
I'm not avoiding it,
Because
I'm just
Ethan
tired.
and I did not
So
hide
am I.
things from each other.
But we have
That
to
had been
talk.
from the time he was old enough for it to be a conscious agreement between us, the foundational rule of our relationship. We talked. Not about everything. I am not so naive as to think that a teenager shares everything with a parent, nor would I want that, but about the things that mattered. When he was struggling, he told
Hi,
me.
got a
When
minute?
something changed in his world,
course,
I
what's
usually
on your
knew
mind?
about it.
It's about the
This
class.
was
Some
something
students seem
different.
to be
This was a
struggling.
locked door
see.
in a house
Let's
that had
talk after
always
school.
had open ones. And the specific quality of its lockedness, the care of it, the deliberateness, told me it mattered. I confronted him on a Sunday morning, and I use the word confronted loosely because it was not that. He was at the kitchen table with his coffee and his book, and I sat down across from him and I said, "Ethan, I need to ask you something, and I need you to know before I ask it that whatever the answer is, it does not change anything." He looked up from his book. His eyes, dark like mine, the one physical feature that came clearly from me, were immediately guarded, not afraid, just closed in the way that doors close when someone is deciding whether to open them. "Okay," he said. "You've been leaving at night," I said. "Several times in the past few weeks. You leave around 2 and you come back before 5. I held his gaze. "I'm not angry. I'm not going to make rules about it. You're 18 and what you do with your nights is your business. But I'm your mother and something is clearly happening in your life that you haven't told me about," and I stopped, found the honest words. "I'm not hurt that you have a secret. I'm worried that you feel like you need one."
This place is nice at
He
night.
was very still.
So quiet.
The kitchen
it's our
was
spot.
quiet around
Feels
us.
like the world stops.
Sunday morning sounds
Exactly.
drifted in
No
from
rush. Just
outside,
us.
a neighbor's
Couldn't ask
dog,
for
a
more.
car somewhere, the ordinary world doing its ordinary thing. "Mom," he said finally, His voice was careful and young in a way that caught me somewhere around the ribs. "You don't have to tell me today," I said. "Or ever if it's something that belongs to you, but if you're hiding something because you're afraid of how I'll respond, I want you to know that I have spent 18 years trying to make sure you never need to be afraid of that." He looked at me for a long moment. Something moved behind his eyes, a tide of something, moving in and then pulling back before it reached the shore. "I know," he said, "I know you have."
I think the
But I
voice
said
that misses the
softly,
most important thing I've ever
"Some
said.
things," he said carefully, "are hard to say out loud, even to people you trust completely. Especially to people you trust completely." He paused. "Because saying it out loud to someone you love means it's real in a way it isn't yet when it's just inside you." I looked at my son, 18 years old, sitting across from me in a Sunday kitchen, holding something enormous and private with the careful hands of someone who had not yet figured out how to put it down. "Okay," I said, "when you're ready." He nodded. He went back to his book, and I went back to my coffee. And we sat in the kitchen together for another hour talking about other things, his upcoming application deadline, a book I was teaching that he'd read the year before, The Neighbor's Dog, and it was ordinary and warm, and underneath the ordinary warmth of it, something was building, something was preparing. I could feel it the way you feel weather coming, before the clouds, before the wind, just the particular quality of the air. The answer came from an unexpected direction. I was at the school where I taught on a Wednesday afternoon after the last bell, gathering my things in my classroom. A colleague of mine, a history teacher named Patricia who had the desk across the hall, stopped in my doorway with the expression of someone who had been deciding whether to say something for a while. "I might be overstepping," she said. "Tell me if I am." "What is it?" I said. "I saw Ethan last Saturday night," she said carefully. "My daughter was at there's a coffee shop downtown, the one that does the late night open mic nights. Arlo's, they run until about 4 in the morning on weekends."
Hi, sorry I'm
She
late.
paused.
I brought
He
this.
was there with someone,
Not
a
at all.
boy from the college.
Come on
I
in.
think Maya recognized him. They seemed, she chose her word carefully, close. The word landed in the kitchen of my understanding and arranged everything that had been unclear. "Close. Thank you for telling me," I said. My voice was even. I was proud of that. She looked at me with the particular compassion of a woman who understood what she had just implied and was watching me understand it too. "He looked happy,
Hope
Diane.
you're hungry,
I want you
boys."
to know that."
Starving,
Whatever else,
Mom. It
he
smells
looked genuinely
amazing.
happy.
Yeah, it really does.
After she left,
Good.
I sat at my
We'll be ready in
classroom
a few.
desk for a long
Awesome.
time.
Thanks. Can't
I
wait.
was an English
I've been playing
teacher.
guitar since I was
spent
12.
20 years
It's not just a
helping
hobby, it's how I
teenagers
express
find words
myself.
for things
Every
that
note
lived
is like a
inside
piece of
them
my
without
soul. When I
language.
play, I'm
I had
completely in the
assigned
zone.
books about
I
identity
can't wait to
and
share my music
belonging
with
and
everyone.
the courage of truth.
You know,
I had written
I've always
careful
wondered about
comments in the
that.
margins of
Oh?
100
Tell me
essays
more.
about difference and
It's just
acceptance
the way
and what it
people
means
connect
to be
is so
fully,
fascinating.
honestly,
I completely
oneself.
agree. It's in the little
And my
things.
son, my quiet, brilliant, careful son, had been sneaking out at 2 in the morning to sit in a coffee shop with a boy he was in love with, because he did not yet know how to bring that love home. That was what broke me. Not the fact of who he was. Let me be absolutely clear about that. What broke me, what cracked something open in my chest in that empty classroom with the late afternoon light going gold through the windows, was the image of him calculating, measuring the love he had against the safety of showing it, deciding somewhere in that precise and careful mind of his that 2 in the morning
was
was
just
safer
thinking
than
about
2 in
that.
the afternoon.
Really?
That
What
he
about
had
it?
needed to
How it
hide
all
the
connects,
happiest
it's
parts of
fascinating.
himself
I
from the
agree, the
person
implications
who
are
loved him
huge.
most.
Exactly.
I
We
sat
should
with that
explore
for a
this.
long time.
Definitely.
Then I drove home,
Almost
and
done
I
with
started
this
thinking
batch.
about what I needed
Great.
to say.
I'll
He
dry
was
the big
sneaking out
pot.
to be himself. That was the truth.
Thanks for helping.
Not trouble, not
course.
danger, not any of the things a worried parent's imagination conjures in
This
the dark.
one is almost
Just a boy,
dry.
18 years old,
You've
learning who
gotten
he
good
was
at
in the
this.
safest place he'd found, a
Thanks,
late-night
Mom.
coffee shop with someone
I'm
who
glad
already
you're
knew.
here.
The truth didn't break me the way I feared it would. It broke me differently. It broke me open. And what came through that opening changed everything between us. I did not tell him what I knew. Not immediately, not because I was afraid of the conversation. I had been sitting with it for 4 days by then and had turned it over in every direction and understood it as completely as I was capable of, but because I didn't want what happened next to be shaped by the fact that I had found out from
It's so
someone else.
nice to finally
He
meet you
deserved to
both.
tell me himself.
The pleasure
He
is
deserved to
ours.
have
Your
the
home
choice
is
of that.
lovely.
Yeah,
So I waited.
I've heard a
I
lot
was
about
present
you.
and ordinary and
All
warm,
good
the way
things,
I
I
always
hope.
tried to be. And I watched him not with
We need to
surveillance,
talk
but with the
about
heightened
what
attention of a
happened.
person who is seeing
I
something
know,
more
I
clearly than
messed
she had
up.
before. Now
It's
that I
not
knew
just
what I was
that.
looking at,
There
I could
are
see it everywhere.
consequences. So
The way
what
he
do
held
I
his
do?
phone
We
slightly angled
face
away
it
when he texted.
together.
The way he smiled at something on
Dad,
his screen
I
and then
need to tell you
carefully
something
smoothed the
important.
smile away. as if
Go ahead,
happiness
son.
were
I'm
something that
listening.
needed to be hidden
I've
along with its
decided to
cause.
leave and find my
The
own
way
path.
he
I
sometimes
understand.
looked at me
It
with
takes
an
courage to say
expression
that.
I now understood was calculation, not dishonest calculation, but the exhausted math of someone constantly measuring how much of themselves is safe to show. I hated that he had learned that math. I hated that I had somehow, despite everything I had tried to be, allowed him to believe he needed it. His name was Jordan. I learned that on a Thursday evening, not from Ethan but from his social media, which I want to be clear I did not go looking through invasively, but which I stumbled into by complete accident when his laptop
Hey,
was
sorry
open
I'm
on the
late.
kitchen
It's
counter,
crowded.
and I reached
It's okay.
past it
I
to
saved
get
your
something
spot.
and the screen was
Thanks.
simply there, a
good to
photograph
see you.
visible before
You
I
too.
could look away.
Glad you made it.
Two boys in a coffee shop. Late night warm light, the particular amber glow of a place that keeps
John
its lamps
Smith,
low.
Bachelor of
Ethan in
Arts.
a dark hoodie laughing at something, laughing in a way I did not see him laugh at home. Fully and without monitoring, his head tilted back and his eyes closed the way faces close when something is genuinely funny. And beside him, a boy with sandy hair and a kind face and an expression of complete and uncomplicated delight in the person beside him.
We
The
made
caption
it!
was
This is
simple,
incredible!
Just a location tag
We
and
sure
an
did.
emoji,
Feels
a small
amazing.
yellow star.
So proud of us.
I looked at
Me
my
too.
son's face
Best
in
day
that
ever.
photograph for a long moment. At the laugh I hadn't known he was capable of. At the ease of him, the way he sat in that booth as if he belonged entirely to the moment, without the careful self-monitoring I now recognized as
We're
his
so
default
proud
setting
of
at
you,
home.
son.
Yeah,
He
you
was
really
beautiful
did
in
it,
that
bro.
photograph. Not because
Thanks,
of how
everyone.
he looked, though he looked
This
fine.
means everything.
He always looked fine, but because of what was in his face. The complete, unguarded presence of someone who is exactly where they want to be, with exactly who they want to be with, and has momentarily forgotten to be afraid of it. Jordan, his name was Jordan. I closed the laptop screen and went to my room and sat on the edge of my bed and let myself feel, for a few minutes, the full weight of what I was carrying. Not grief, or not only grief, something more complicated. The strange sorrow of a parent who realizes that her child's happiest moments have been happening in secret, in borrowed late-night hours, away from the home that was supposed to be the safest place he knew. And underneath that sorrow, something else, a quiet, insistent warmth, because he had found someone, because the laugh in that photograph was real, because Jordan, whoever he was, had given my son a place where he could be entirely himself, and that was not nothing. That was, in fact, everything. He told me on a Saturday. Not because I pushed, I hadn't. Not because I revealed what I knew, I didn't. He told me because he had apparently made a decision. And I later understood from things he told me in the weeks afterward that the decision had been building for a while, and that our conversation at the kitchen table the previous Sunday had been part of what moved it forward. He came into the living room where I was reading. He sat in the chair across from mine, which he never did. He usually sat on the couch, and the specificity of the chair told me something. It was the chair we called the honesty chair, without ever officially nomming it that, because it was where we had over the years sat for the conversations that required a certain formality of distance and directness. The college conversation. The conversation about his grandfather's illness. The conversation 7 years ago where he'd told me a friend at school had been unkind to him in a way that went beyond ordinary unkindness. When he sat in that chair, I put my book down. "Mom," he said. "I'm listening," I said. He looked at his hands for a moment, then at me. His eyes were the careful ones, the ones I now knew to be the eyes of someone measuring distance before they jump. "I'm gay," he said. 2 words, flat and enormous, the way the truest things always are, simple on the surface, fathomless underneath. The room was very quiet. "Okay," I said. And then I did something I had promised myself I would do, which was to stop talking and let him lead, because this was his moment and his truth, and it needed to breathe before I filled it with my own response. He exhaled slowly, the careful exhale of someone who has been holding something for a very long time and is finally, cautiously, releasing the breath. "I've known for a while," he said. "A few years, I didn't know how to," he stopped. "It's not that I thought you'd be angry, I know you wouldn't be, I know that." He looked at me with an honesty that was almost physical
I've been
in its
thinking
intensity.
about what you said.
It's that saying it out
And?
loud makes it the thing it
It's
is,
not
and for a
easy for
long
me.
time I needed it to
I
just
know.
be mine before it
But
was
we can't
anyone
keep
else's.
avoiding this.
I
understand.
understand, I said, and I did. I thought of the girl I had been at 17, carrying something I didn't have words for, needing it to be private before it could be shared. I thought of all the things I had ever held at the edge of language, waiting for the courage to cross. "There's someone," he said. "I've been seeing someone since August." "Tell me about him," I said.
I don't know
He
what to
looked at
say
me,
anymore.
something in his face
You can't
shifted,
keep
a
avoiding
loosening
this.
like a
I'm
fist
not
opening.
avoiding it. I'm just tired.
His name
So
is
am I.
Jordan, he said.
But we have
He
to
goes to
talk.
Eastfield College. He's a sophomore. He's 19. He's studying environmental science. He paused. He's patient and funny, but in a quiet way. He remembers things. He looked at his hands. Little things, the kind of
Hi, got
things
a
most
minute?
people don't
Of
notice.
course. What's on your
He
mind?
sounds like someone
It's
who
about the
pays
class.
attention,
Some
I
students seem
said.
to be struggling.
He does,
I
Ethan
see.
said. He
Let's
really
talk after
does.
school.
I looked at my son sitting in the honesty chair, talking about a boy named Jordan who remembered small things, and something in my chest was doing something complicated, full and aching and warm all at once, the specific emotion of a parent who is seeing their child come into focus in a way they hadn't quite managed before. The late nights, I said gently. He looked up quickly. You knew. Not for certain, not the details, but I knew something was happening. I paused. Arlo's yes. He blinked, then, after a moment, a rueful half-smile. You knew. I suspected. A friend saw you there. I held his gaze. Ethan, why there? Why at 2 in the morning? Why not here? The smile faded. He was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke, his voice was quieter too. Because there, he said, I don't have to be careful. Nobody there is watching to see how I react to things or what I say or whether the way I look at someone gives something away. I can just be. He looked at me. Here I love you too much to take the risk.
This place is nice at night.
And there it
so
was,
quiet.
the thing that had
Yeah,
been
it's our
waiting
spot.
in the center
Feels
of
like the
all
world
of it.
stops.
Here I love
Exactly.
you too much
no
to
rush.
take the risk.
Just us.
He had
Couldn't
been
ask for more.
protecting me in his way, protecting us, the relationship, the safety of it, the thing between us that mattered more to him than any late-night freedom. He had kept his secret not out of shame and not out of distrust, but out of a kind of love so careful it had become its own form of isolation. I felt the full weight of that sentence settle in my chest. Come here, I said. He got up from the honesty chair and came to sit beside me on the couch, and I put my arm around my 18-year-old son the way I had when he was 8 and afraid of thunderstorms, and he let me, which told me something important about how much he had needed this.
I haven't
You don't
divorced
have
him.
to
This
be
is the
careful
most
here,
important thing
I
I've
said.
ever said.
You never did. Whatever I may have done or not done that made you feel like you did, I'm sorry. From the bottom of everything I am sorry for that. He was quiet for a moment. Then, you didn't do anything wrong, Mom. I want you to be able to bring Jordan home, I said. I want to meet him. I want to make pasta, mediocre pasta, you know how I am, and I want to sit across from him and ask him too many questions about environmental science, and I want you to be embarrassed by me in the way you're supposed to be embarrassed by a parent who loves you too openly. He laughed, a real one, not quite the laugh in the photograph, but close, getting there. Yeah, he said. Yeah, I said, can we do that? Yeah, he said, I think we can do that. He told me his name. He told me about the coffee shop and the late nights and the boy who paid attention to small things. And the breaking I had feared, the crack I had heard in my chest for weeks, turned out to be the breaking open of something that had been too tightly closed. He hadn't been sneaking away from me. He'd been sneaking toward himself. And now, finally, he was bringing himself home. Jordan came to dinner on the following Friday. Ethan told him the Wednesday before, told him that his mother knew that she wanted to meet him, that it was safe. I wasn't in the room for that conversation, obviously. But Ethan came downstairs afterward with an expression I hadn't seen on him in years. The expression of someone who has been braced for impact and discovered with profound disorientation that the impact is not coming. He wants to come, Ethan said. He was really glad that he paused. He said he'd been hopping. He'd been hopping, I'd
Hi,
know.
sorry I'm late. I
He'd
brought
been
this.
hopping, I'd tell you.
Not at all.
Ethan
Come
looked
on
at
in.
me with the direct, honest eyes that I'd always loved most about him, the eyes that appeared when the careful ones stepped aside. He said that hiding from your family is the most exhausting thing in the world and that he didn't want that for me forever. I thought about Jordan, a 19-year-old boy at Eastfield College studying environmental science, navigating his own version of all this, whatever his story was, whatever coming out had looked like
Hope
for
you're
him,
hungry,
and wanting
boys.
better for my son
Starving,
than the
Mom. It
exhaustion
smells
of
amazing.
permanent hiding.
Yeah, it really
That
does.
told me something
Good.
important.
We'll
That
be
told
ready
me
in a
great
few.
deal.
Awesome. Thanks.
He sounds
Can't
wise,
wait.
I said.
I've been playing guitar since I was
really
12.
is,
It's not just a
Ethan
hobby,
said.
it's how I
And the way
express
he
myself.
said it with a
Every note
quiet
is like a piece of my
certainty,
soul. When I
complete
play,
and
I'm completely in the
uncomplicated
zone.
confidence
I
in
can't
this
wait to share
person
my music with
told
everyone.
me that whatever I'd find
You know,
when Jordan
I've
walked
always
through
wondered
my
about
door
that.
on Friday,
Oh?
Ethan had
Tell me
already
more.
found the
It's
important
just
things.
the way people connect is so
He arrived at
fascinating.
6:30.
I completely
I had
agree.
spent more
It's in the
time
little
on the pasta
things.
than usual, which my sister would have found hilarious given my well-documented indifference to cooking precision. I had also, I will admit, tidied the living room with the particular attention of a woman who wants to make a first impression, which is not something I'd done since the early years of single parenthood when impressing people felt more urgent than it does now. The doorbell rang. Ethan got there before I could. I heard voices in the hallway, Ethan's, low and warm, and another voice, slightly lower, with a quality I couldn't yet identify from the kitchen. Then
I was just
footsteps,
thinking
and they
about
came into
that.
the kitchen together,
Really?
and I turned
What
from the
about it?
stove, and I
How it all
met Jordan
connects,
for the
it's
first time.
fascinating.
I agree. The
He
implications
was
are
taller
huge.
than I'd expected from the
Exactly,
photograph.
we should explore
19
this.
years
Definitely.
old, sandy-haired, with the kind of face that takes
Almost
a moment
done
to
with this
settle
batch.
into handsomeness, because
Great.
the first impression is simply
I'll dry the
fine.
big pot.
He was wearing a dark green jacket
Thanks for helping.
and carrying a paper
course.
bag that he held out toward me immediately, before I'd even
This one
finished
is
turning,
almost
with
dry.
an earnestness that made
You've
me
gotten
like
good
him
at
before
this.
he said a word.
Thanks, Mom.
I brought
I'm
bread,
glad
he
you're
said.
here.
I know that's maybe an odd thing to bring, but Ethan mentioned you were making pasta and I make sourdough. I've been making it since I was 14. My mom taught me. He paused, looking at the bag with the brief uncertainty of someone wondering if the gesture was right. Is that okay? That is absolutely okay, I said. I have strong feelings about bread. Me too, he said, and a smile, quiet
It's
and
so
real,
nice to
the
finally
same
meet you
smile that
both.
had been in the
The
photograph,
pleasure is
started
ours.
at the
Your
corner
home is
of his
lovely.
mouth.
Yeah,
I
I've
took the
heard
bag.
a lot about
I
you.
looked at him for a
All good
moment,
things,
this
I hope.
boy who had spent 3 months meeting
We need
my
to talk
son in
about
the
what
amber
happened.
light of a late-night
know,
coffee
I
shop,
messed up.
giving him a place to
It's
be
not just
entirely
that.
himself,
There are
and I said,
consequences. So what
thank
do I
you
do?
for coming,
We
Jordan.
face it together.
Thank you for having me,
Dad,
he said.
I need to tell you
and
something
then, with the
important.
specific honesty
ahead,
of
son.
someone
I'm
who
listening.
has decided not
I've
to be
decided
indirect.
to leave and find
for,
my own
I
path.
know this is a
I understand.
strange
It
thing to
takes
say,
courage to
but
say that.
thank you for being the kind of person Ethan could tell. It matters more than you know. The kitchen was very quiet for a moment. It matters to me too, I said, more than I knew apparently. Ethan was looking at us both with the expression of someone watching two worlds that he had kept carefully separate slowly, gently, begin to occupy the same space. Dinner was 2 hours and 17 minutes long. I know this because I looked at the clock when we sat down and again when Jordan finally said he should probably head back.
Hey, sorry I'm
and
late.
the number
It's crowded.
surprised me, not because it
okay.
had
I
felt
saved your
long,
spot.
but because it had felt
Thanks.
like nothing at all.
It's good to see you.
Like one of those
too.
evenings that
Glad you
seems
made
to
it.
exist outside of normal time. Jordan talked about his environmental science program.
John Smith,
with the
Bachelor
specific
of Arts.
passion of someone who has found the thing they are supposed to spend their life on. He talked about urban green spaces and soil rehabilitation, and a project his department was doing in partnership with the city to restore a section of riverbank that had been industrialized for decades. He talked about it the way Ethan talked about books, with the fluency of genuine
We
love,
made
not
it! This is
performance.
incredible!
He asked
We
me
sure
about
did.
teaching.
Feels
Real
amazing.
questions, not
So
polite
proud of
questions,
us.
not the
Me
questions
too.
people
Best
ask
day
when
ever.
they are being courteous, but the questions of someone who is actually curious. He wanted to know about the books I taught and why I'd chosen them. He wanted to know which students I remembered from years ago and what it was about them that made them memorable. He
We're
asked
so
me what
proud
I
of
thought
you,
the
son.
job of literature was.
Yeah, you
which
really
is
did
not
it,
a
bro.
question most 19-year-olds
Thanks, everyone.
lead with, and which
This means
sent us
everything.
down a conversation that lasted through the pasta and halfway through the bread. Ethan sat between us at the table and said less than either of us, which was not because he was withdrawn. He was entirely present, entirely there, but because he was watching. I recognized the quality of it. It was the quality of someone seeing something they had imagined for a long time finally being real. The careful boy who watched more than he spoke, watching the two people he loved most find each other across a dinner table. At one point I caught his eye and he looked at me with an expression that undid me quietly. It was gratitude, but it was more than gratitude. It was the look of someone who has been carrying a weight alone for a very long time and has finally, for the first time, been allowed to set it down and discover that it was survivable to have carried it and survivable to release it, and that both things, the carrying and the releasing, had led him here. I smiled at him, he smiled back, and we went on talking about books and rivers and bread. After Jordan left, after I had sent him home with leftover pasta, and the sourdough had been eaten entirely, which I considered a triumph, Ethan helped me with the dishes, which he always did. We worked side by side the way we always had, the familiar rhythm of a household that had organized itself around two people for 11 years, and for a while neither of us said anything. Then he said, "Thank you, Mom." For what? The mediocre pasta. For not making it a thing, he said, for just letting him be a person, not making it about everything else. I thought about that. About the ways this dinner could have gone, the weight it could have carried, the performance of acceptance that could have substituted for the real thing. I had tried all evening to simply be interested, to treat Jordan the way I would treat anyone Ethan cared about, with curiosity and warmth and the genuine desire to understand who this person was, not as a symbol of anything but as himself. He's wonderful, I said. I want to be clear about that, he's wonderful. Ethan dried a plate. Yeah, he said, he really is. The bread was spectacular. I know, I've been eating his bread for 3 months. You've been eating spectacular bread and not telling me, I said, that I'm actually hurt about. He laughed and it was close, so close to the laugh in the photograph. I called my sister that night after Ethan went upstairs. She is 3 years younger than me and has always been in matters of the heart more sensible than I am. She listened while I told her everything, the sneaking out, the coffee shop, the conversation in the kitchen, the dinner, the bread, Jordan's face when he talked about Rivers. When I was done, she said, "How do you feel?" I thought about it honestly. Like I almost missed something, I said. Like there was a version of this where I never said the right thing and he never told me and it just calcified. The distance between us grew permanent. I paused. And like I didn't miss it
I've been
barely,
thinking about
and
what
like
you said.
barely is close enough to be
And?
terrifying.
It's not easy for
But you
me.
didn't miss it, she said.
I know.
No, I
But we
said
can't
I
keep
didn't.
avoiding this.
Then that's the
I
story,
understand.
she said, not the almost, the didn't. The months that followed were ordinary in the best possible sense. Jordan came to dinner regularly, every week or two, sometimes more. He and Ethan studied at our kitchen table on Sunday afternoons, Jordan with his environmental data and Ethan with his university applications. The two of them working
I
in
don't
the
know what to
comfortable
say
silence
anymore.
of people who have
We
learned
can't
each
keep
other's
avoiding
rhythm.
this.
I'm not
I
avoiding
graded
it. I'm just
papers
tired.
at the other
So am
end of the
I.
table and
But we have to
periodically
talk.
offered opinions nobody had asked for, which they received with the tolerant affection of young people who have accepted that this is simply how I am. I met Jordan's parents in March. His mother, a warm, direct woman
Hi,
named
got a
Claire who
minute?
had, Jordan told me beforehand,
course,
known
what's
he
on
was
your
gay
mind?
since he was 16
It's
and had
about the
cried for
class.
20
Some
minutes not out of
students seem to be
sorrow,
struggling.
but out of relief that he
I
trusted
see.
her brought
Let's
wine
talk
and we
after
talked for
school.
4 hours, and I drove home thinking that the universe, when it arranges things, sometimes arranges them with a generosity that surpasses what you thought you were allowed to ask for. Ethan came out to his father in February. That conversation, which he told me about afterward in careful and honest detail, was harder. Greg needed time not because he was unkind, but because he had to dismantle some things that had been built quietly inside him, the assumptions that live in us without announcement until something challenges them. He took 2 weeks. Then he called Ethan and they talked for 2 hours and he said, clearly and without qualification, that he loved his son and was proud of him and wanted to meet Jordan. Ethan told me about that phone call at the kitchen table, and his voice was even and his eyes were clear, and I thought, look at him. Look at who he's become. Not despite the hiding and the carrying and the 2 a.m. coffee shop through it. Because of the kind of person he is, who could hold all of that carefully and survive it and come out the other side with his wholeness intact. In June, the week before Ethan's graduation, Jordan gave
This
him a
place
card.
is nice at night. So
I wasn't
quiet.
supposed to see it.
Yeah,
It
it's our
was
spot.
private between
Feels like
them,
the world
but
stops.
Ethan left it on the kitchen
Exactly.
counter and
No
I
rush,
saw the
just us.
outside of it before
Couldn't
I
ask for more.
realized what it was and looked away. It was a simple card. On the front, in Jordan's handwriting, was a line that I have thought about many times since. To the person brave enough to be himself in the dark and then in the light. I put the card down and went to make coffee and thought about a Tuesday night in October, footsteps on a staircase, a door eased open, a mother in the dark listening. I thought about what I'd feared when I first heard those footsteps, the shapeless parental dread of something wrong, something dangerous, something I could not protect him from. And I thought about what those footsteps had actually been, a boy walking
I think the voice
toward
that misses
himself,
that most important thing I've ever
carefully in the
said.
dark, in borrowed hours, finding the person he was and the person he loved, one night at a time. He hadn't needed protection from any of it. He had needed a mother who would leave the light on. The graduation was on a Saturday in June, the kind of morning that feels like a reward, blue sky, warm light, the particular electricity of a day that has been worked toward for a long time. I sat in the bleachers between my sister and an empty seat I'd saved, and just before the ceremony started, Jordan slid into that seat, breathless from parking, and said sorry and thank you at the same time, which seemed like him. We sat together and watched Ethan cross that stage. And when his name was called and he walked forward and took his diploma and turned to find the people who were there for him, Jordan and I were both already standing, which neither of us had discussed, which happened because some things don't require discussion. He found us in the crowd. He raised his hand. He smiled, the full one, the real one, the one from the photograph. I raised my hand back. Beside me, Jordan did the same. My son, in a cap and gown in the June sunshine, laughing at something, surrounded by the people who loved him without condition. Fully visible, fully himself, entirely in the light. I had spent weeks afraid of the truth. And the truth in the end was just this: my son was loved. My son was whole. My son had found someone who saw him clearly and a mother who finally understood what seeing him clearly required. That was the truth. It was the best truth I had ever been broken open by. He sneaked out at 2 in the morning
Hi,
to find
sorry
himself.
I'm late. I
And what he
brought
found
this.
was worth every
Not at
careful
all.
step, every
Come on
quiet
in.
door, every borrowed hour in the amber light of a late-night coffee shop. He found love. He found courage. He found the version of himself that was always waiting, not hidden, just not yet named. And when he finally named it, the world that received it was ready. Because love, when you raise it honestly, tends to find its way home.